Hello students, and today we are going to be starting out on page 234, and it's going to be lesson 12, writing and graphing systems of linear equations. Alright, so they're going to start you out with a kind of like a little warm up here. And what they've done is they said Diego bought some raisins and walnuts and trail mix. Gives you the raisin cost per pound, the walnut cost per pound, the total that he spent. And so we're going to go through this and kind of figure some stuff out. Again, what we're trying to do here is to make you kind of correlate the idea of taking a written description of what's going on, coming up with an equation which describes what you read, and then coming up with a graph that then fits that equation. Alright, so we'll go through this real quick. Now, it says the raisin costs $4 a pound, so try to do this one by yourself before I get done with this thing. So they're telling me that I got $4 a pound for walnuts, $8 a pound, or excuse me, raisins are $4 a pound, walnuts are $8 a pound, and he spent $15 on the total. And so we can go through this thing and just kind of figure out what we've got for an example. Okay, so what I can do is I can start out that there's $4 per pound of raisins. So this is going to be pounds of raisins, and I'll make it an X, and I'll say pounds of raisins. Okay, and then I'm going to add to that the walnuts, which will be $8 per pound, and I'm going to make that variable Y, and I'll make the Y pounds of walnuts. Okay, and as you can see, the pounds will cancel in each one of these, so you'll just get dollars plus dollars, and of course that total turns out to be $15. Right, so that's your base equation written out with a lot of examples of units and stuff that you'll have to worry about. So we can kind of bring that down a little bit and just kind of simplify it. Alright, and so there you go. That's kind of a simplified version of the equation. So they start out by saying, well, does 4 pounds of raisins and 2 pounds of walnuts, does that work? Well, let's see. 4 pounds of raisins, so that's $4 a pound times 4, plus 8 times 2, or $8 a pound times 2. Well, that's 16, and that's another 16, so that's clearly not equal to 15, so that one's going to be a no. Alright, let's try the next one. 4 pounds. Move stuff around here so you can see a little bit better. 4 pounds, let's see, 1 pound, $4 a pound for the raisins, and then 1 pound of raisins. Plus, let's see, you've got $8 per pound for walnuts and 1.5 pounds of walnuts. Okay, so 4 times 1 would be 4. And 8 times 1.5, if you do your calculator, you just do this in your head, that comes out with 12. Well, that equals 16, which again is not going to be equal to 15, so that's going to be a no. Let's go to the next one. $4 a pound times 2.25 plus $8 a pound times 0.75. Alright, let's find out if that does in fact equal 15. Let's see, 4 times 2.5, that's 9, and 8 times 0.075, well, that's 3/4 of 8, which is 6. That does, in fact, 9 plus 6 does equal 15, so I'll put a yes on that one. And then the last one, we got $4 a pound for raisins, 3.5 pounds, plus $8 a pound, and we got 1 pound of walnuts. So, does that in fact equal 15? Alright, so let's see, 4 times that, 4 times 2 is going to be a 20, and so that comes out to be $14 that you spend there, plus 8, that does not equal 15, that's closer to 22. Alright, so that's a no. So the only one that really works here is this third one down. Alright, Now to continue on with 2.2. Alright, so I kind of did a little bit backwards, but that's the way I like to do it. I like to read a problem and then come up with the equation. Then I can start answering questions very intelligently then. Alright, so they come through here. Here's a situation you saw earlier. Diego had bought raisins and walnuts for trail mix. Raisins are 4. Walnuts are 8. He spent a total of 15. Write an equation that represents the constraint. Let x be pounds of raisins and y be pounds of walnuts. So we have this equation right here, which is what we got just to start the problem up here. Use graphing technology to graph the equation. Well, I'm not really big into using the graphing technology. I mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm kind of old school, and so I like to go about it the old-fashioned way. I'll put up an x and y axes. The x, of course, is raisins, pounds of raisins. And the y is going to be in units of pounds, and that's the walnuts. So what I like to do is go through here and find the y-intercept, all right? And I got to find the x-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is going to be some point 0, some number, right? So I'll just substitute 0 into here, and I just got to figure out what I need to have for the y value to make it true. And I'm going to have something down here, which is going to be some number x, and I'm going to substitute in a 0 for the y, and I'm going to get a point on this axis. So I've got the y-intercept here, where it intercepts the y-axis, and this is going to be my x-intercept. Alright, so let's just do a little bit of experiments here. Alright, so I've got the equation 4x plus 8y equals 15. So I'm going to start out with 0, some number I want to find out. Right? So that's 0, y, 0, some number is the y-intercept. I'm going to start there. You can start down here if you really wanted to. I'll start up here. So I'm going to put a 0 in for this. Plus 8 times y equals 15. I got to solve for the y value that makes it true. Well, 4 times 0 is just 0. That's why I chose the intercepts, because it's going to make one of them, poof, go away and make my life so much easier. So what do I got now? Well, I got 8y equals 15. How do you solve for 15? Well, you divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. So you divide both sides by 8. So y equals 15 eighths. Alright, so that's a little bit of a kind of a screwy number. So what we can do is we can go and get out our handy dandy calculator if you wanted to. I mean, 15 is really close to 16, so I know it's going to be around 2, but 15 divided by 8, that's 1.875. So y equals 1.875. Okay, so that's that value that goes into here right there. So this y-intercept right here is going to be 1.875, and that's a fairly shallow number. So I'll say that this is like the number 2 up here, and that makes that about a 1. And so that's about where my point's at. That's about a 1.875. All right, on my x-intercept, I'm going to do the same thing. Only I'm going to start with a 0 and the y. All right. So now this time, I'm going to try going with some number, 0. All right, the x-intercept. So I'm going to go 4 times x plus 8 times 0 equals 15. Well, this thing just goes to 0. All right, just like over here, it went to 0. All right. And now I got 4x equals 15. So I divide by the coefficient of the unknown. Divide by 4. X equals 15 fourths. So what does that give me? Well, let's see. If I go 15 divided by 4, 3.75. So if we look at here, and I'll go 3.75. I'll make that a 4. I'll make that a 2. I'll make that a 1. I'll make that a 3. Now something I want you to notice here. I don't have to make the scale on this axis the same as the scale on this axis. There's nothing that says that has to be. Typically it is, just to go and make it easy for him, but you don't have to. All right. I just drew this, and I can put any scale on there I want, but as long as I define the scale, I'm good. So 3.75 is about right there. Okay? And all I have now is I can go and use my little straight edge, and I can just connect the dots. There we go. And I'll label my line 4x plus 8y equals 15. There. I got everything that I need on this thing. I've got my axes. I've got my axes labeled x and y. I've got the units on each. I'm telling you which one is walnuts and which one is raisins. I've got points labeled, and I've got the equation itself labeled. So I've got all my information right in one spot. So it helps me tremendously to put all that information in one spot so I can look it up if I need to. So now we're going to go through, and let me go over to this one. So we have this little setup right here. So we got pounds of raisins, which is your x value, as you remember. And we have our y value, which is pounds of walnuts. And they want us to go and fill this out. Right? So here, I'm going to go and take those same equations. I'm going to do a little bit of mathematics to it so we can solve for these. All right? So let's go back to our camera. All right? Make this go away for the time being. All right? So now let's go and take that equation that we just had. So I've got 4x plus 8y equals 15. In one instance, I want to solve for x, and in one instance, I want to solve for y. All right? So I want to get x all by itself and put all the numbers and everything else and the y on the other side. Okay? So if I want to do that, let's look at this thing. I want to get this all by itself because it's the only one containing an x. So I got to move this one to the other side. How do I do that? Well, I subtract 8y from both sides. 4x equals 15 minus 8y. All right? Now that's 4x is equal to this thing. Well, I don't want 4x's. I just want 1x. So what do? Divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. So I divide both sides by 4. Cancels out over here. X equals 15 minus 8y, all divided by 4. All right? So I've now solved that side for x. We're going to do the same thing over here, only we're going to solve for y. So if you look at this, the only thing that has a y is this term right here. So I'm going to take everything else and put it over on the other side. So I'm going to subtract the 4x this time. So I subtract 4x, I get 8y equals 15 minus 4x. I'm still solving for the y. I've got 8 of them over here. I don't need 8. I need 1. So I'm going to divide by the coefficient of the unknown. Divide both sides by 8. Y equals 15 minus 4x, all divided by 8. So these are my two equations I'm going to use to solve this information, all right, that's presented on the other page. All right? So whenever they're looking for the x value, which is the number of raisins, they're going to tell me how many pounds of walnuts I have. I just need to substitute and solve. When I want to find the pounds of walnuts, they're going to tell me how many pounds of raisins I have, and I just substitute and solve for it. All right? So now in your book, the first one, they give you 0 pounds of raisins, and they try to figure out, well, how many pounds of walnuts do you need? Now we've already done that one. All right, you can go back in the video if you want to see it, but that first one is a 1.75. Okay, so that's what we have so far. All right, so you've got that one right there. 0. That's the y. That's the intercept. Remember, that's the y-intercept. Okay. All right. So let's go through this next one. Again, I'm solving for the amount of walnuts. So let's go and see if we can find that. That means I'm going to solve for the y. So I'm going to use this equation on that side. So wherever it's blank on that side, I'm going to solve for that. Okay? So y equals, so in the second one, they're giving you 0.25 pounds of raisins. So 15 minus 4 times 0.25 divided by 8. Well, let's see. 4 times quarters, right? 4 quarters is 1, so that's 15 minus 1 divided by 8, which is 14 divided by 8, which is, pull up our handy dandy calculator here. Let's put it right about there. Oops, don't need it that big. 15 divided by 8. Oops. Correction. 14 divided by 8. 1.75. Alright. So that's what you've got right there. Now they're giving you this one. They give you here. Let's still go down and solve for this one right here. We'll just fill up this one right here, since we got the same equation each time. Alright, so 1.75 this time. So y equals 15 minus 4. Let me redraw that 5. There we go. 54. And it's a 1.75. Everything divided by 8. Let's see. 4 times 1.75. That's a 7. So 15 minus 4 times, let's see, 1.75 times 4 turned out to be 7 divided by 8. Well, 15 minus 7 is 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. And that is what you've gotten right there. There's your answer. Let's go on to the next one with 3 pounds of raisins. So y equals 15 minus 4 times 3 divided by 8. Well, that's 15 minus 12 divided by 8, which is 3 divided by 8. Let's see, what is 3 divided by 8? 3 divided by 8. 0.375, which is what we have right here. Alright. Now let's go back and solve for the unknowns and the x's. And I got, looks like 1, 2 of those I got to solve for. Okay. So, now I got to go and use this one, since I'm solving for the pounds of raisins and they're giving me the pounds of walnuts. So I'm going to start out with my equation. X equals 15 minus 8y divided by 4. 15 minus 8. And this first one, they're saying that the pounds of walnuts is 1.375. 1.375. Again, everything divided by 4. Okay. Alright, and let's see. Eight times 1.375. It's 11. So 15 minus 11 divided by 4. Well, 15 minus 11 is 4. 4 divided by 4, thus 1, which is what you got. Where you have, there's where we started, and there's your answer. 1. Alright. Next one, 1.25 pounds of walnuts. So x equals 15 minus 8 times 1.25, everything divided by 4. So let's see. Let's clear everything out here. And we got 8 times 1.25. There's 10. Right? So 15 minus 10 divided by 4. Well, it's 5 divided by 4. And 5 divided by 4 equals 1.25. 1.25. Alright, and so there's your math that you have for that one. And if you'll notice, that's what we've got for an answer right there. Okay, so we've been able to go and fill this whole thing out by taking our root equation up here, solving for x and y, getting two different distinct properties here, two different distinct equations, and then substituting them to solve for the walnuts first, and then solve for the raisins next. Right? So there's all your work. Right? Now, it continues on. This is here in number 2. Let me go and move my face out of the way a little bit. Here is a new piece of information. Diego bought a total of 2 pounds of raisins and walnuts combined. Ah, all right. So we look at this thing, the two together. All right. Here's another equation right here. X plus y equals 2. That's what that means. That the pounds of raisins plus the pounds of walnuts has to equal 2. So let's go through and let's see if that brings down anything. All right. So using that combination, all right, I have a bunch of numbers here between 0 and 3 on my raisins, and then I have walnuts over here, and I got to figure out what they are. So I'm going to use this equation to go and fill out this. So if I get 0 raisins, then it has to be 2 pounds of walnuts. All right. So 0 plus 2 equals 2. Now you go down here to 3. Well, 3 plus what number is a 2? Well, that would be a -1. Well, you can't go and buy something there and get a negative amount of walnuts. It's not going to happen. So that's why there's a little line through here, because there's no answer that you can't complete it. This answer can't exist. All right. But now completing this, if it's 0.25 pounds of raisins, when you take and subtract that away from the 2, then you get 1.75 pounds of walnuts. All right. So if you have 0.625 of the raisins, so 2 minus this amount, 1.375, or you can take 2 and take away 1.375 and you'll get this number. 2 minus 1 1/4 is 0.75 left over. And if you're given 1.75, then that has to add up, both these to 2. And so you get 0.25 pounds on that. Okay? This is using graph technology to graph the equation. We already graphed the equation. Well, we can graph this equation. This will be pretty straightforward. How would that graphing go? All right? We'll go and put that up here in my book just to make it easy. So let's go and draw our axes. There's the x, there's the y. Now remember this, what I said before, try the intercepts. If x is 0, right, here's your x right here, right there is 0, what value does y have to be to make it equal to 2? Well, it has to go through 2, so 0, 2. And if we do the other way around on the x-intercept, that means that the y value is 0, right? And we'll make it right here. And so that would be 2, 0. Thus 2 plus 0 is 2. And we want to graph this. There. Nice straight line. And we're going to label this as x plus y equals 2. There. Now you're all graphed and everything's all back to normal. Okay? So now you might notice that there's some differences here. I mean, this just tells you all possible solutions that you might have with this little extra piece of information. You might be able to narrow it down. You'll notice that this one right here and this combination here match up. So that almost looks like a solution. So Diego spent $15 and bought exactly 2 pounds of raisins and walnuts. How many pounds of each did he buy? Explain how you know why. Because this and this match up for solutions. You don't find this number up here. You don't find this combination up here, or this one, or this one. That's the only one that's in the same spot for both. So what does that actually mean? Well, it basically means that this equation and this equation down here, they intersect at one spot, and that spot is 0.25, comma 1.75. Right? That's what that means. Meeting constraints. So 12.3 are meeting constraints now. Let's see what it says. It says here are some solutions that each relates two quantities that involve two constraints. For each situation, find the pair of values that meet both constraints and explain to show your reasoning. All right, I'm going to switch back to this right here. All right, so we're going to go through these, and we have to go and make out some equations for this stuff. Okay, so it says here are some situations. The dining hall had this many tables, some long and some round. Long can seat 8, round can seat 6. On a busy evening, 190 seats at the table are occupied. How many long tables X and how many round tables are there? Okay, well, we can come up with an equation for that. So we have two equations we're going to be getting out of this. Okay, I want you to realize there's going to be two equations we can get out of this. Okay, so let's go and let's look at this. Okay, so it says a dining hall has a total of 25 tables, some long and some round. So long plus round equals 25 tables. All right, I'm going to call that X, and I'll call that one Y. So X plus Y equals 25. That's the number of tables. Number of longs plus the number of shorts equals your total amount. But now how much does each seat? Well, the long table seats 8 people. So I know that that's 8 people for every long that I can come up with. And the round tables have 6 people. So plus 6 times the number of Y. And then the total of seats that we're talking about here is 190 seats altogether. So that's 190. Okay? So those are your two equations that you have in this. All right? See, before we were just solving for what combinations would make this true. And then with another second equation, I can now narrow it down even more. And so what we have here is you have two unknowns and you have two equations. So we can solve for the exact point that this will manifest to. All right? Let's go on to number 2. A family bought a total of 16 adult and children's tickets to a magic show. Okay, stop. We know that we have 16 total tickets. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to say we're going to have adult tickets and student tickets. And we know that the total tickets that we have, total of 16 adult and child tickets. I'll call this one X. I'll call this one Y. So X plus Y equals 16. And then they continue on. Adult tickets are $10.50 a piece. So adults, so that's 10. $10.5 times the number of tickets plus child tickets is 7.5. There's your Y. So student slash child, as you do. And how much did they spend? They spent a total of $141. All right. So that's like the equations for the second one. Okay. Let's look at the third one now. Then we're going to go back and we're going to solve each one of these individually. All right. Next one says, at a poster shop, Hahn paid $16.50 for 2 large and 3 posters of his favorite rock band. Kieran paid 14, 15 for one large poster and 4 small posters of his favorite TV shows. Posters the same size have the same price. Find the price of the larger poster, L, and the price of the small poster, L. So we got large and small. Okay, so L is the large, and S is the small. So what are we going to do? So we have 2 different instances here. Alright, what was the first instance? The first one was Han. What did Han do? Well, Han started out and it said Han paid a total of $16.80, so equals $16.80. And he got 2 larges and 3 small ones. And then Kieran comes in. And what does Kieran get? Kieran paid $14.15, and he had 1 large and 4 small. Alright? And so we want, here's your 2 equations. We need to go and solve for L and S in this instance. Okay? So let's just go through this. Now that we kind of figured out how to go and make those equations, let's go ahead and let's solve each one. Alright, so let's start out with the first one. X plus y equals 25, and 8x plus 6y equals 190. Alright, so we have to go and figure out some ways to do this. Now, in math, there's always, or seemingly almost always, more than one way to solve an equation. There's almost always a way to figure out more equations. Okay? So one method is called a substitution method. You solve for x or you solve for y and then you substitute it into the other one. And that way you eliminate one of the variables. Okay? Another one is if the numbers match up, you can just simply get rid of them that way. Now this one makes it really easy because with just an x and just a y, and down here too, I can just solve for an x or just solve for a y, and then substitution. So the substitution method is going to work a little bit easier for these. Okay, so let's just do that. I'm going to go and take this one, and I'm going to solve for x. How do I solve for x? Well, I got to subtract the y from both sides. So x equals 25 minus y. All right. Next, I'm going to substitute it in down here. So if I substitute in, I know what x is. I got 8 times the quantity, 25 minus y, plus 6y equals 190. Alright? So now we have to use our distribution. There we go. So as you can see, I solved for x. And then I took it into this equation. I just simply substituted in the x value. So I need to distribute. So 5 times 25, or excuse me, 8 times 25. Well, if you have 8 quarters, how much do you have? Well, you have $2, or 200. 8 times y, that's a minus 8y. And then I have a plus 6y, and that equals 190. Right, so I got to combine all the y's on one side and everything else on the other. So I'll put all the y's on this side, and I'll put all the numbers on this side. So I got to put this thing over here, which means I have to subtract 200, and then I can combine these. Well, if I have negative 8 y's, and I add 6 to it, that gives me a negative 2y. And when I move this over to here, I have 190 minus 200, so that's a negative 10. Right? I want to solve for y. I'm going to divide by the coefficient of the unknown. Divide both sides by negative 2. Y equals, well, that's the same as 10 divided by 2 because these go and cancel out, which is 5. So now you have y equals 5. Well, if y is 5, you go right back up here at the top. Okay, x plus 5 equals 25. Subtract 5 from both sides. This goes away and you just got the x. And 25 minus 5 is 20. So I have 20 long tables, which is the x's, and 5 round ones. So there you are. There's your answer. Substitution. All right. So let's try on the next one. On the next one, I have a very similar situation. I have this thing set up. So I have an x plus y equals 16. And then I have a 10.5x plus 7.5y equals 141. Let's take this one and let's solve for x. X equals, well, I got to move the y over. Subtract it from both sides. 16 minus y. And now I substitute it in down to here. So I have a 10.5. The x I figured out is 16 minus y. Plus 7.5y equals 140. Then your next step was to distribute. So what is 16 times 10 and a half? All right, this is the time for your calculator. 16 times 10.5. 168. So 168. Then 10.5 times minus y is going to be minus 10.5y plus 7.5y equals 140. Now what do we do? Well, we eliminate all the x's, so I just got y's to worry about. If you look at this, what's a negative 10.5 plus 7.5? Well, that equals a negative 3y. And I want to get the y's all on one side. That means I got to move the 168 over here. So I'm going to subtract 168 from both sides. They cancel. 140 minus 168 is a negative 28. Oops. I think I made a mistake here. This should be 140. Let's see, 141. Got to make a mistake here. 141. 141. I got it right there. I had a transposition error, so wrote these wrong. 141. 141 minus 168. Let's see. 141 minus 168. Negative 27. Minus 27. There we go. Alright. Now what do we do? I have to solve for y, so I divide by the coefficient of the unknown. The coefficient is negative 3. And I just have a y on this side. Well, the negatives cancel. And 27 divided by 3 is 9. Now that you know that y is 9, you can go back up to here, and you have x plus 9 equals 16. Subtract 9 from each side. X equals 7. So you have 7 and 9 are your answers there. So you have 7 adult tickets and 9 children's tickets. And let's go on to our last one. What do we got this time? Well, you had Han and Kieran had these two equations. All right. So this one, you could do substitution like we did the first term, which is perfectly fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm going to show you the second method here. It's called basically we're going to add and subtract, addition method, to eliminate one of these things. Now, do you want to? You can eliminate the L's, or you can eliminate the S's. I'm going to eliminate the L's just because it's easier. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by writing down my equations. All right. So Let's write them down. So I've got 2L plus 3S equals 1680. And then I got 1L plus 4S equals 1415. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this bottom one by a negative 2. All right, and you'll see why I chose negative 2 in a minute. All right, if I do that, I just keep the top one like it is. I didn't change that one at all. If I multiply this both sides by negative 2, all right, so it's like this. I multiply both sides by a negative 2. All right. Well, what's negative 2 times this? Well, negative 2 times 1 is a negative 2L. And a negative 2 times that is a minus 8S. So I'm just taking this and I'm just basically doubling it. I go from 1 to 2, 4 to 8, and I got a negative sign here, which means I changed the sign on each one. Okay. Equals, and then 1415 times 2, do that math here for you. 14.15, oops, 15, I'm going to make it a negative, oops, not yet, times a negative 2 equals a negative 28.3. So that's what you've got now. Now, we add. What's negative 2 minus 2, or excuse me, what's 2 minus 2? Well, that's 0. It just poof goes away. So all I got is this stuff right here. So what's 3 minus 8? Well, that's a negative 5s. And what's 16.8 minus 28.3? Let's do a little math here. 16.8 minus, or plus a negative, 28.3. Negative 11.5. I want to solve for S, which is the smaller poster size, or excuse me, smaller poster number, and I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. Negative sides cancel. So I got to figure out what this is. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so I just have 11.5 divided by 5. So let me take this one. There's my 11.5 divided by 5. Well, you get S is 2.3, or $2.3 per poster. Well, now that you know that, you can go back up to here, any one of these, and you can solve it. You could use any one of your originals. Let's try that. 2L plus 3 times 2.3 equals 1680. All right. What's 3 times 230? There's 230 times 3, $6.90. 2L plus $6.90 equals 1680. All right. I'm going to subtract 16.9 from both sides. Or excuse me, 6.9. Cancel, cancel. 2L equals, well, let's see, 16.8 minus 6.9, $9.90. Divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. And that tells me what L is. So I've got to have 9.9 divided by 2, so I'll take that number divided by 2. 4.95. So the large ones, the large posters are $4.95. The small ones are $2.30. How can we check our work? Put into the second one. 1L plus 4S equals 14.15. If that turns out right, then you know you got the right answer. So let's see, 1L, so that's 4.95 plus 4 times 2.30. Let's see what that equals. Let's see. Let me clear everything out. 4 times 2.3. So this thing right here is $9.2 plus 4.95. $14.50, which is what I'm supposed to get. So I know that that is the correct, this and this are my correct answers. Okay. And there you go. So that's the big things on that one. All right, we're going to go and start coordinating between graphs and reading the problem and writing equations. Now you have a couple of different ways that you can go solve for the two things and find exact numbers. So rather than finding a continuum or a whole bunch of answers, we can now narrow, if we're given enough information, we can narrow it down to just one answer, 1 point on there. All right. It says, are you ready for more? Make up equations for 2 lines, which is what we have been doing here. This is equations for 2 lines. All right, and that point that we come up with, the solutions, that's the point of intersection. It satisfies both equations. Make up equations for 2 lines that intersect at 4, 1. All right, well, let's see what we've got here. Draw up our little lines here. And I got to do 4, 1. So I'm going to say right there, 4, 1. 4, 1, 4, 1. And let's see, let's make up one that has a slope of 1, and we'll make up one that has a slope of 2. Right? Or maybe, we'll go -1, -2 as well. Or, let's make one that has a slope of 1. Right? So, if this is 4, and this is 1, if I make a slope that's to the left, or negative, and I go up 1, what's this point? I'm going over here to 3, and then I'm going up 1. So what's that point? I went from 4 down 1 to the number 3, and I went from a 1 up. So you should recognize that that point right there is 3, 2. All right, and that equation, or that line, will look something like this. Okay, and now I need to go and find another one that intersects at this point. So this is a point of intersection. Okay, point of intersection. Now at that time, I want to go to the right one, which makes it go over to 5, and then I want to go up 1 again. So what's that point? Well, that point there is 5, 2. To the right 5 and up 2. So you went like this. And now I have another equation. I have another line. And I can have them both intersect there. There. So there's your point of intersection. Right there. All right. And that point is right there. Okay. So they said make up some equations for 2 lines. I'm more interested in that you can graph them. All right. We can make up the equations in a little bit. And let's kind of move on to this one because this is somewhat important. This is where we come up with the equations on this one. I want you to get just ready to just go on. If you're going to make up stuff, make it easy on yourself. Just give it a slope of 1. All right. Make up equations for 3 lines whose intersection points form a triangle with the vertices here, here, and here. Wow. That one is going to be tough. Okay? So let's go and draw again. I'll just take this off. So my points are, let's see, -4, 0, 2, 9, and 6, 5. All right? Well, let's put that on a graph. So -4, 0. So -4, 0. 2, 9, so 2, 9. And 6, 5, so 6 and 5. 6, 5. There we are. All right. So I'm just going to freehand some sides here. There. There's a nice little triangle, and you've got the points that you want to do. So if I want to do that, it says make up equations for the 3 lines. Okay. So I've got line 1 right there. I'll have line 2 right there. And I'll have line 3 right there. So let's go through and just do the math on that one. Well, I've got line 1. If you look at line 1, first thing I really need to do is I need to go and find the slope of this thing. The slope, and the life comes out a lot easier for me. Okay? So what is slope? Let's do a little bit of reviews. M, which is slope, is, I can write a couple different ways. I can say the change in the y's divided by the change in x's. I can say that it's the rise divided by the run. Alright, I can say it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is very similar to what we have here, the change. Alright. So any way that you like to think about it. So let's go through and see what we can do here. Let's do line 1. Well, if you look at this, you got a kind of a little triangle action going on with every single one of these. Let's just draw a little triangle here. Think about this. There's your little triangle. All right? I'm going to start here. I'm going to go here. Okay? So if I start here and I go to there, that means I got to go over this way and I got to go up. Okay? Well, how far up did I have to go? Well, I started at 0 and I ended at 5. So that means I went up 5 units. So that's the change in the y's from 0 to 5. It went from 0 to 5. That means I went plus 5. And I got to find out the run. So I started at -4 and I went all the way over here to 10, or excuse me, to 6. So I start at -4 and I go all the way to 6. That's 10 units. So 5 divided by 2, the slope is 1/2. Right? So that's fairly simple on that one. I have an equation of 5/2, right? Or 5/10, or slope is 1/2. So remember your old y-intercept form. What's the y-intercept form going to say? Well, remember, y equals mx plus b. Okay? So do you know a point on that line? Well, you sure do. It's right there. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Let's substitute this one in. What's the y value? Well, 0. What's the slope? Well, it's 1/2. We just found that out. What's the x value? Oh, it's a -4. Plus b. I just got to find out what that value is right there. Alright, so do a little bit of math. And so 0 equals, what's 1/2 of -4? Well, that's a -2. Again, I'm trying to solve for b. So what do I get? Oh, I just put the numbers over on the other side. I'll add 2 to both sides. If I add 2, 2 equals b. And I'm pretty much done. Y equals 1/2 x plus 2. So now that's one way that you can represent this. Now you could prove this on the other side, but since they're not too particular about what kind of equations they want, that is a legitimate equation. So we're going to go and keep just that one. Okay? So I'm going to put it on y equals 1/2 x plus 2. All right? Now let's move on to do line 2. All right, so I got these two numbers. All right, first things first, just like before, y equals mx plus b, which means that I have to solve for the slope. Slope equals, now let's see, what do we got here? So let's go and look at this. All right, I have another little triangle action going on here. What's my triangle? Here's a triangle. Whee! There. Well, I'm going from here to here. That means I went up and to the right. So what's the rise? I went from 0 up to, started at 0 and I went up to 9. So that means that my rise was 9 units. So that's 9 divided by. And then what's the run? All right. So this is like the run here. This is the rise. This is the rise. And this is the run. All right. How far is the run? Well, I started at -4 and I went all the way over to 2. So that's 6 units. Okay. So 6 divided by 9, that's the same as 3 divided by 2, or 3/2. That's your slope. You're done. And now, let's make it easier on ourselves. I know that that point is on the line. I'll just use that point. It's got a 0. It makes something disappear. So, if we did that, I'll just substitute in here. The y value is 0 equals 3/2 times the x value, which is, let's see, focus. There. X value is -4 plus b. Well, let's see. What do we got here? I got a 2 and a 4. That means I can cancel. And I get a 2. And so what do I got? Well, I got a 3 times a 2, and there's a negative sign in there. So what's the slope going to be? Or what's this product going to be? Well, let's see. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times a negative, that's a -6 plus b. Okay, and that whole thing has to equal 0 still. I'm solving for b, so I'm going to go and move this thing over here. So I'll get 6 equals b. So what does my equation turn out to be? Well, y equals 3/2 x, not plus b, plus 6. There's my second equation. So y equals 3/2 x plus 6. All right. So that was line 2. Now on to line 3. Okay. We're going to do the same thing. Y equals mx plus b. I got to find my slope. So let's go look at our graph here. And we'll go and make a little triangle and label our rise and run. You can put it there. So this is the rise. And that's the run. So what's your rise? Well, let's see. You went from 5 up to 9. All right, so that's a positive. 5 up to 9 is a plus 4. And the run, you're going. If you start here and you're going to here, you went up 4, but you went a negative direction this time. All right, I'm going negative. I'm going down. I'm going from 6 down to 2. So if I went from 6 down to 2, that means I went a -4. So -4. Well, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and I have a negative sign, so that just tags along. So that's my slope, a -1. Now this time, I don't have my little helper with me, so I got to pick one of these two numbers. It won't matter which one you pick. Pick the one. I like to pick the one that's going to be easiest to work with. Okay. Now, we got a slope of -1, so I don't have to worry about odds and evens or anything weird. So it doesn't really matter on this one. I'll pick the 2, 9. I don't think one's going to be easier than the other, but I'll just pick 2, 9. So if I pick 2, 9, my y value is 9. My slope is a -1. My x value is 2 plus b. So 9 equals -1 times 2 is a -2 plus b. I got to solve for b, so that means I have to add 2 to both sides. So add 2 to 9, you get 11. And that's what b is. So your equation turns out to be y equals -1x plus 11. All right? And there's your third equation. And that's what they asked for, 3 equations. Okay. And then now, can we go and put these into a different form that people will understand a little bit better? Oh, sure. I mean, we can go and maneuver these things around. I'll put that in the next video because I can see I'm already in an hour, so I'm already have exceeded really what I should be doing for one class period. So we'll stop there and we'll pick this up on the next video along with the lesson summary.